I think, today what I'm kind of hoping we can dig into a little bit is just what are some of those, kind of quote numbers that you ought to be paying attention to when it comes to, thinking about, do I need to buy a machine? Do I need to expand? And then if I do, what are the types of things I should consider? So I would maybe start that with, what are some of the data points to you? What are some of the things you could be seeing in your company, whether it's, hard facts or just feelings,
Yeah.
that would point somebody to say, maybe it's time to look at adding a machine or two or 12.
Yeah, or 12, which happens. Honest to God,
Sure.
I had times where customers came to me, and a lot of it, right, is your quoting load. Look at all of a sudden, man, RFQs are through the roof. How much what's the percentage of those you're going to win? But most of it, Mike, is and I always felt a great example of when a customer was ready was spindle utilization rates. When your spindles running at that 80% level, a standard vertical, like in a day-to-day job shop, with setups and breaks and lunch and changeover, you're like 28 to 30%, with no automation. Yeah. So I think spindle utilization is probably one of the key factors, if not the key factor, in understanding when you need that next spindle. Because if you start achieving a high rate and you're like, okay, well, that machine's tapped out. We got no other time. Obviously, it's time for a spindle. But again, back to the quoting process itself. As an owner or a guy that's sitting down and that's his job is to quote. The job's coming in. When that load gets to a level that it's exceeding the capacity of the shop, it's at that point where you got to start to look at. Okay, I always like the thought too, like. Not only is it those two factors, but then what are you going to do to change the game? Like, okay, are we just going to buy another vertical? Are we just going to appease what we've got, for the quoting log right now or the spindle that we're using all day, every day? Or are we going to kind of look at a different idea of a different type of automation or machine and get more done with that machine?
Yeah, I think, well, there's a couple things I'll draw on from like when you were at the shop last week that we talked about. And you've seen my mix of machines now.
Yep.
We've got a lot of spindles.
Yes, you do. Great shop.
We've got some super old machines. We've got some newer machines. I think my newest machine's probably 4 years old or something.
Yep.
But I've got two machines that I think I told you I love it when I see those running.
That's right.
They're 25 years old and they're the last thing we go to, right?
That's right. The shop.
We don't schedule those machines. Those are like, oh God, we got to put this somewhere. But
I love that. I love that. I thought that was great because you're right. If those two are running, then we're doing well.
It's going to be a good month.
We're hopping, yeah.
But one of the, I like what you said there because I think. And you and I talked about this a little bit last week, I think at dinner, but to me the right time to buy is not when I need it, right? It's by you referencing that quoting cycle even, it's when the numbers to me it's when the numbers show you you're going to be buried.
That's right.
Right? So now, I've got some machines that I need to replace.
Yep.
So that's not even necessarily that I'm going to have more business coming. I just need to replace some.
Right.
But I also have machines I need to expand, and I think you just touched on that too. It's like, do I just buy another horizontal or vertical mill, or do I go to a 5-axis mill that maybe I don't currently have, but I foresee that it could have an effect on my current business and also open up the door to some new business.